Hi, I'm Tom Garner. I'm here in my CNI shop where we primarily manufacture RF1 sperm up and nurture. And this is where I do my mixes for warming my yard of dogs. I primarily what I'm here to do today is mix RF1, which is their highly nutritious, palatable, tasty meat formula with, in one case, fenbendazole, and in the other case with praziquantel, so that we are able to do a good general warming of the yard. Every 3 months, we do a 2-part cycle of worming. When I say 2-part, what I mean is, for example, with the fenbendazole, it kills adult worms of many types, but that leaves juvenile worms. So you have to worm, wait 3 weeks, wait for the juvenile forms of the worms to become adults, and then worm again, so that you have rid the dogs of a broad variety of worms. Fenbendazole used to be almost sufficient in and of itself. That's no longer the case. You have to give ivermectin in conjunction with fenbendazole in order to clear hookworms. And the praziquantel, you give it every time that you do a 3-day cycle of fenbendazole. We also do a 1-day treatment with praziquantel because it kills the Echinococcus tapeworm. So those 3 wormers together will collectively keep your dogs free of worms. The ivermectin should be given monthly anyway as a heartworm preventative. So essentially, whenever you treat for heartworms, you are eliminating hookworms at the same time as an added bonus. So we're coming up on the time that it's necessary for us to do our double treatment of fenbendazole 3 weeks apart, and that starts with me collecting the correct amount of RF1. In each case, 17 pounds fits neatly in a 5-gallon bucket. So that's what I work with, and then I have done the math to calculate the necessary amounts of fenbendazole and praziquantel in each 17-pound container in order to give a dosage rate such that a 60-pound dog requires a 12.5 gram tablespoon of RF1 plus whichever medicine we're giving, either fenbendazole or praziquantel. So the first step was for me to review my calculations and go through them again. I always double check, even though I've done this 100 times. I always go through the math again so that it makes sense. Every now and then I'll find that I've made a mistake, and it's not often because I'll double check and triple check, but I'm human. It's always possible, and I hate being wrong. So anyway, so the first thing we do, we've zeroed the scales, put an empty bucket here, and then we're going to zero it again. Okay, let me go over here and make sure that the cord is in correctly. Okay, well that seems not to be. Seems like we got a little bit of a bad connection here. Okay, so we've got it zeroed to include the weight of the bucket. I have a tub of RF1. This is a ribbon blender from which we do the mixing of RF1, the RF1 ingredients. What you're seeing here is stacks of various ingredients that go into the RF1 product. They get mixed in this big ribbon blender. It's a big stainless steel machine that it mixes things so that they're distributed into parts per billion. So if you have something like selenium, that you're not healthy if you don't have 10 parts per billion. That's just a number I pulled out of the air. But there are some necessary nutrients that have to be distributed so that they only occur in parts per billion. So ribbon blender is the only machine that really does that, and so that's why we mix the RF1 in, and this is some RF1. And my first objective here is to put 17 pounds of RF1 in this bucket. Get the weight on this. 1735. Okay, we got 17 pounds there. And this is the bucket that's labeled RF1. This one's labeled praziquantel. We'll take this one to the same level. Actually, this one still has a little bit of praziquantel left in it. Rather than screw up my math, I'm going to dump that into another tub, and then I'll add it back to the bucket whenever we're finished. Okay. It's important to honor the procedures if you want a truly accurate result. You start cutting corners, you don't really know what you end up with. But it's not perfection, I can tell you that. Okay. These rubberized tubs are very handy. They're strong. If you're using a drill with a paint stirring attachment on it, if you're using a metal tub, it will ultimately beat the metal out of shape to the point where the bottom leaks. The bottoms of the metal tubs, the metal from the side bends over the metal from the bottom, and that's how they seal. But you do it for a few years with a paint mixer, hitting the sides of the metal tub, and it distorts the metal where they start to leak. So anyway, this is Tough Stuff products from Tractor Supply, and I'm pretty happy with what I'm getting from that. All right, so we're going to start with the RF1 and fenbendazole. And that's what this bucket is designated for. So I'm going to put it in here. And I'll spread it out. I'm going to make a little bit of a cavity in the middle because I'm going to cover up this fenbendazole powder with RF1, because whenever I start spinning it fast with a drill, it will throw the powder everywhere, and that's not what we want. All right, so a lot of you are going to ask, where do I get the fenbendazole? This is 1 kilo of pure fenbendazole powder. This is out of China, and I buy in 5 kilo lots, and it's probably less than $150 a kilo. You can buy kilo size lots in the United States, and they will cost you $350 or $400 a kilo. And the truth of the matter is, the American suppliers are getting their product out of China. The same people I got this from. You wonder about the quality of stuff from China? It's been my perception over the years that the Chinese desperately want American business, and the fastest way for them to screw that up is to turn out inferior products. I've had great results with this stuff, just like I've done from other sources of fenbendazole, and not much on this earth that I love more than my dogs, and I'm satisfied that it's appropriate for them. So what we've done here is we've put 1 kilo, 2.2 pounds of pure fenbendazole with 17 pounds of RF1. And I'm going to put this in the trash. Okay, so now I'm going to cover up the fenbendazole with RF1. The fenbendazole powder is lighter, fluffier, and if that drill paint attachment ends up getting into a pile of pure fenbendazole, it dusted up the air with it, and you breathe it and you waste it. So what I'm doing here is just some simple, basic mechanical mixing, and you'd be surprised how much you can mix it just doing what I'm doing here. One way you judge how well you've mixed it is by the consistency of color throughout the mix. If it's all kind of a light tan, then that's where it ends up at. And if some of you are tempted to let this be all the mixing that you do, I would never feel comfortable with that. Because this happens on a macro level, not so much on a micro level, and the mixing is just incomplete. But just in a minute or two, you see how we've changed the look of it. I know that's very tedious for people who are patiently watching, but you want the whole picture, here it is. Alright, so I'm just going to get it down close to one end. I'm going to prop this end up on the scale. And I'm going to get my paint mixer. Okay, we got multiple speeds here. I don't want the fastest speed because I don't want to sling it everywhere. Had to retighten my attachment. You need to be very systematic with the mixing. In other words, I do rows. I don't just randomly, haphazardly work it. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this tub around so that what was on the bottom on one end ends up being on the top on the other end. So the stuff that was hugging the bottom before now gets accessed. You see these areas here where you got these clots that are a little different color. You got pure fenbendazole evident here. And so if you're gonna do it right, you gotta be aware of all that kind of stuff. You need to go all the way to the bottom with it. Okay, there you have it. That's the essence of what you have to do to mix a kilo of fenbendazole, pure fenbendazole, with 17 pounds of RF1, so that you end up with a dose of 1 tablespoon. Something about like that. You can pile it to higher, but that's a true tablespoon, and we weighed it. You need 12.5 grams of this mixture for 60 pounds of dog body weight. And well, the dogs we got out there, this is sufficient for doing this application and the repeat application in 3 weeks. So, sometimes seeing an actual physical demonstration is worth 10,000 words. Sometimes it is, and I agree with that, and that's why, even though I've described the process before, some points, some details don't get addressed in just a verbal description. So you see me do it here. What I'm going to do next is put this back in the red bucket, put the cap back on it, and set it out for my employees to begin the next application of 3 days of fenbendazole. There's another way of doing it, and that's 5 days, which also is supposed to make a dent in giardia in your dogs. What we found here is that there's not a lot of issue with giardia in older dogs. Almost every dog has giardia. but it's subclinical. In other words, it exists, but the immune system has it under control, and it doesn't cause clinically noticeable problems such as bloody stools. So after 3 days of treatment with fenbendazole, dogs get to where they don't like it. It's not the friendliest of chemicals, and they start picking around where you've given the combination of RF1 and fenbendazole. So we don't feel like that we need to do enough 5 days of fenbendazole and RF1 to cover Giardia as well as a host of worms. So we do 3 days, as they'll still readily consume it up to that point, and usually what you give after that's mostly wasted. So 3 days of fenbendazole, 3 weeks apart, and then that cycle repeated every 3 months. There you have it.